So it seems that tariffs and international bullying of other countries just aren't winning the trade war for America. So what's the next step? How about we order all the international banks to stop lending China money? Is that going to work? Let's talk about it. 大家好，我是 Surant 在中国. Hey everyone, it's Surant in China. How y'all doing today? I hope you're having a lovely day. I am having a simply fantastic day over here in Shenzhen as usual. As you can see, the sky is clear and sunny. The leaves are green and it is a beautiful day. And it keeps getting better because so many more of my fantastic viewers have decided to help the channel out simply by hitting that subscribe button below and throwing me a thumbs up when you decide that you like the content that I am making. That goes a long way in helping the YouTube algorithm to find my videos and share them with more people. And I'm getting so much closer to my goal of 15,000 subscribers. 谢谢你们. And thank you for all of your other support as well. And don't forget, there's a link down below to my other channel where I am posting some simply fascinating videos from my last trip, and there will be so much more coming. Please help me on that channel to hit 1,000 subscribers. I think with all of my friends and viewers here, it should take no time at all. But for now, speaking of time, let's get to today's video. So today we're going to dive into a critical issue that's facing the US economy: the escalating borrowing crisis and its ties to economic tensions with China. This is a complex topic with far-reaching implications. So let me see if I can break it down a little bit with some facts over the next few minutes. So the US and China are locked in a financial tug-of-war. Even if trade disputes have quieted down recently, the US administration, under President DJ Tariff Trump, has pushed to bring manufacturing back to American soil, or so they say, a process that's called reshoring. The strategy? Well, impose high global tariffs to pressure companies into building factories in the USA. But recent events have exposed a harsh reality. There's a limit to how far you can push tariff policies before destabilizing your own financial markets, particularly the US bond market. The bond market is a financial marketplace where investors buy and sell bonds, which are essentially loans made to entities like governments, corporations, or local municipalities. When you purchase a bond, you are lending money to the issuer. In return, the issuer promises to pay you regular interest, like a reward for lending the money, and return the principal amount, the original loan, on a set future date called the maturity date. The bond market allows people to trade these bonds. Think of it as a platform where you can sell your loan, or IOU, to someone else before it is fully repaid, or buy someone else's loan. The price of a bond can change based on a few key factors. Interest rates. If new bonds offer higher interest, older bonds with lower rates might sell for less, a discount. If new rates drop, older bonds with higher rates can become more valuable, a premium. Creditworthiness. How likely the issuer is to repay the loan. Safer issuers, like governments, often mean lower risk, while riskier ones, like some companies, might offer higher interest to attract buyers. Time to maturity. How long until the bond expires and the principal is returned? In simpler terms, a bond market is like a giant marketplace for trading IOUs. The value of each IOU depends on how much interest it pays and how confident people are that the borrower will pay it back. For example, government bonds are usually safer, backed by taxes. Corporate bonds might be riskier because they're tied to a company's success. Municipal bonds fund local projects and can come with tax perks. Now, despite tough rhetoric, the White House has softened its stance on unilateral tariff reductions against China. Scott Bessent, a key economic advisor, has emphasized that any tariff adjustments will depend on negotiations with China. The US wants China to lower its own tariffs and non-tariff barriers while encouraging companies to relocate manufacturing to America to secure critical supply chains. But tariffs alone won't achieve this, and the administration knows it.
Tremendous tariffs, wonderful tariffs, the best tariffs. Everybody says it. Everybody says they're the best tariffs.
To incentivize reshoring, the administration is doubling down on tax cuts. In 2017, Trump slashed the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. Now, plans are in place to reduce it further to 15%. This move aims to make the U.S. a more attractive destination for businesses by allowing them to keep more profits. But here's the catch. These tax cuts come with a staggering price tag. Over $9 trillion in deficit spending over the next decade. That's an additional $900 billion in borrowing each year starting in 2025. So how will the U.S. fund this? The government relies heavily on issuing bonds, but the bond market is showing signs of strain. The original plan was to create economic uncertainty, potentially crashing stock markets to drive investors into bonds, which would lower bond yields and ease borrowing costs. Instead, the opposite has happened. Investors, including major bondholders like Japan, began selling U.S. bonds, causing yields on 10-year and 30-year Treasury bonds to spike. This signals a loss of confidence in the U.S. economy's stability. The bond market is flashing red. At a recent auction of 5-year Treasury notes, the U.S. borrowed at nearly 4% yield, but demand was weaker than expected. International buyers, who typically account for 70% of demand, dropped to 64%. Pension funds and hedge funds are also pulling back, leaving domestic investors to pick up the slack. This declining foreign demand limits how many bonds the U.S. can issue without triggering a broader market collapse. Meanwhile, China's bond market tells a completely different story. As global investors poured money into Chinese bonds, their 10-year bond yields fell from 2% to under 1.7%. High demand for Chinese bonds allows Beijing to borrow at lower costs than the U.S., giving China a serious financial edge in this economic standoff. Ironically, U.S. tariff policies have made Chinese bonds a safe haven for investors, actually strengthening China's position. So faced with a weakening bond market, the U.S. is shifting tactics. Instead of escalating tariffs, Scott Bessent is targeting China's access to international loans. He recently met with Masato Kanda, the president of the Asian Development Bank, the ADB, urging the bank to stop lending to China. The ADB, where the US and Japan hold significant influence, provides loans to support economic development in Asia. China, despite being a minority shareholder, benefits from borrowing at rates comparable to the U.S. Treasury yields, around 4.4% for a 10-year loan. This arrangement allows China to diversify its funding, secure cheap loans for projects, and preserve its trade surplus. For the U.S., this is a problem. By borrowing at lower costs, China can outpace the U.S. in a subsidy war, funding more industrial growth more efficiently. Bessent's push is to cut China off from ADB loans and aims to raise China's borrowing costs and level the playing field. The U.S. faces a trifecta of challenges: a trade war, policy uncertainty, and rising interest rates. These factors drive up Treasury yields, making borrowing more expensive and slowing economic growth. China, by contrast, borrows at lower rates, even in U.S. dollars. In April, China issued nearly half of all emerging market dollar and euro bonds, paying 26 basis points less than the U.S. for equivalent debt. This suggests that global markets trust China's ability to repay more than the U.S.'s, a troubling sign for American capital markets. The U.S. borrowing crisis is a complex issue with no easy fixes. Cutting off China from multilateral loans may slow Beijing's financial advantage, but it risks retaliation and further market instability. But what do you think? Will this strategy work, or is the U.S. fighting a losing battle? So let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you like my videos, like I said, throw me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe. It's the best way to show your support for the channel. And as always, thank you for joining me today, and we will see you in the next video. Zaijian.